the protests for a moment. Let's talk about the protests for a moment. We certainly dealt with it last week. We're certainly going to deal with it somewhat this week, although there are some good news about clamping down on these protests, but it's everywhere. Every colleges, especially the liberal ones in liberal states, the high-end university ones that are no longer good institutions, but obviously indoctrination centers, just like high schools and things like that. But UCLA, which I inspired at one time when I was a kid to go there, looks like just a mess. It destroyed it. Columbia, Harvard, Yale, you name it, they've done some things. But at the same time, the increased support for Hamas, and I granted, some of these kids have no idea why they're there. They're simply following a mob mentality, but they have certainly been funded by this organizations, Palestinian for Peace, Peace for Palestine, which are supported by, well, some nefarious characters. I'll turn it over to you, Jacob. Protests in universities.
Yes, we see three kinds of protesters, essentially. We see professional protesters who are organized by professional activists. These are people who follow an Olenskiist agenda, and they are funded very often by George Soros's front organizations. That is one. These are just professional outsiders. And they, in one sense, because they're the best funded and most organized, are very dangerous. Secondly, we see the Islamic element. We've had a steady betrayal of American national security to Islamic oil money, going back certainly to September 11th and earlier, to the Bush administration, and even to the Clinton administration before that. They knew that radical Islam was growing in the United States. There were people who warned, such as the Israeli government, such as Steve Emerson, such as others. And Clinton did nothing. And then, of course, Bush did nothing. Bush even continued the express visa program for Saudi Arabians after September 11th, allowing these schools and madrasas to be funded by the Saudi Arabians. Look at the human rights record of Saudi Arabia. Yet the Bush family, particularly George Bush's father, who's now deceased, said the Saudis are our friends. They're hanging Christians, but the Bush family said they're our friends. It's not a Democrat-Republican issue. The betrayal was as much Republican as it was Democrat, letting these people into the country. That continued under Barack Obama, and it is continuing now under Biden, actually going to the extent of not protecting the borders, knowing that Syrians, Iranians, anyone else is coming in with the illegal immigrants. They've opened the door to terror, as well as narco-terror, human trafficking, fentanyl, etc. A complete betrayal of the country by Biden, Mayorkas, and the people on back of them. But that is the second, the Islamic element. Again, the CAIR was never investigated by Congress. 3 times the Justice Department linked its leadership with the Muslim Brotherhood, who killed Anwar Sadat, and Hamas, a terrorist organization officially listed as such in the United States and in other countries, is the military wing of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is why the Egyptians do not want anything to do with them. So you have the Islamic element. These students are coming into this country. They're staying illegally, many of them. They're applying for green cards. They are coming in on student visas and engaging in jihadist activism. That's how they see it. That is the second element. The third element is the lunatic left. The lunatic left. These are basically people of low intelligence who attend very expensive schools. These Ivy League schools are not what they were academically. The only thing is you're paying more and more money for a less and less qualitative education. You can still get qualitative educations in STEM fields and in certain institutions such as Caltech and MIT and Stanford and places like this, or Carnegie Mellon. But you've seen a dropping of the SATs as an admissions determinant in these Ivy League schools. Not that SATs should not be gotten rid of if you're going to replace it with something viable, such as achievements test. But they got rid of the SAT to replace it with DEI. These organizations are not very good anymore. These universities are not what they were. You had a plagiarist as president of Harvard, simply appointed there because she was a Black woman. And she was proven to be a plagiarist, demonstrable plagiarist. Yeah, and then denied she's a plagiarist. She said, I just included material in my thesis and so forth that I didn't accredit. That is plagiarism. People get thrown out of Harvard for doing that. This other woman at Columbia University is the same. They're only there based on gender, politics, and race. They're not there based on qualification. These institutions have gone way down, and the Alumnus Association, the people who have graduated from them, need to realize that it's not the same Yale, it's not the same Princeton, it's not the same Harvard, it's not the same Columbia. Stop giving them money. And stop spending astronomical sums of money to send your children there. These universities are hurting themselves, and they are reaping what they sowed, but the beginning has only commenced. Expect a further decline in these institutions and in their academic reputations, their reputability.